Greetings, productive programmer. So in this course, we are really going to be placing a little bit of emphasis on how databases fit into Phoenix so that you can understand how to build applications that utilize a database. And to do that effectively, you will need to have a database installed in order to actually work with this course. And the database that I'm going to be using is Postgres SQL. So Postgres SQL is the database that we're going to use, and you can install it by going to postgresql.org and just following the download instructions for whichever operating system you have. I'll assume that you'll be able to complete that step on your own and be able to kind of follow along with whatever the latest installation steps are. But once you have it installed, you should be able to type psql space -- version on your command line, and you should see the version. I'm using 15.1. It honestly probably won't really matter for the purposes of this course what version you have, but I'm on what is the current latest version. And the way that Phoenix and Elixir work is they will abstract a lot of the layers away from having to deal directly with Postgres by using what's called Ecto. And I'll get to that in a minute, but because of the way that Phoenix and Elixir treat using databases by using Ecto, it's really going to not matter which version of Postgres you have because it basically will act as the interface to whichever version of SQL you're using. So you won't really have to worry about that. And as long as you're working on any Postgres version, especially 15.1 or newer, even older versions would be fine. You'll be fine for this course. Okay, so to continue this course, you should have Postgres installed now. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up a Phoenix project. By default, Phoenix will come with Ecto installed as well as Postgres set up as the default configuration. So to basically set up our project, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a new Phoenix project. So mix Phoenix new. I'm going to call ours customer. And this is going to be a project that we're going to focus on just really the database side of things and we're getting things to work. So you can see to get this working, all we have to do is type mix Phoenix new customer. We can just hit yes to install our dependencies. And in some of the previous courses that you may have taken at Productive Programmer, we've used --no--ecto, and that's how we disable the database. But here we are going to use database, and so we just simply don't say anything. We just basically do mix Phoenix new and then customer, and it will go ahead and create everything with the database configuration and be set up to use Postgres by default. So this might take a second to install. And once this is done, we will continue this lesson. Okay, so our Phoenix project has been set up and we are going to follow the recommended step to cd into our customer directory. And inside of here, we can see all of the files structure for what has been set up to be our Phoenix project. So I'm just going to open this up inside of VS Code. So that command code space dot only works if you have the code command installed on your command line tools. Otherwise, you can just open it up the old-fashioned way inside of VS Code. And once we're inside of our project, we're going to look at how this is set up. So if we go inside of our config folder to where it says dev.exs, we can see that we have our configuration for our database set up here. And it has our username set up to Postgres and our password set up to Postgres. For convenience, I've set up my password for Postgres to be Postgres, so I don't have to change this, but you will need to if you have a different password that you set up your Postgres installation with. And likewise for username, so if you have a different username other than Postgres, you'd have to change that as well. But my username is Postgres, so I made it really easy so I don't have to change it in my settings for demonstration purposes. But you may need to change those. Localhost is your local machine. We're doing our development off of our machine, so we can leave that alone. Database, that is set up to customer_dev. So you don't have to worry about that. I know it doesn't exist yet on your machine, but we're going to go ahead and create that in a little bit here, but we'll get to that step in a little bit. And for now, you can just leave that name just the way it is. So by default, because we are in a development environment, our database is going to be customer_dev to basically distinguish it from a production database. And that's a pretty cool feature that is built right into Phoenix. So it's going to give you an _dev naming convention for your database. So by default, Phoenix is going to assume that you are in a development environment like this, unless you were to set up mix_env equals prod. Then it will set it to basically be a production environment if it can find this environment variable, mix_env. So I'm not going to do that, but that's how you would basically tell Phoenix that it should not assume that you're on a development environment. And so this dev.exs file inside of your config folder is where you'll set up any of your configurations for your development database. And so just to make sure that you don't have any accidental misconfiguration, you can always just verify that your Postgres installation has the same username and password by doing psql space -u space, and then you're going to enter your username. So in my case, it's Postgres. So your username, so whatever you have at the first line should be able to function here. And when you type that, and it's supposed to be capital, so make sure you don't make that mistake. Sometimes I like showing these mistakes because they're common and easy to make, and if you make them, you'll be confused why it doesn't work. So make sure you use the capital -u. So psql space -U, and then Postgres is our username. Then I'll ask you for a password. In my case, it's Postgres. And obviously you would use a secure password if you were on a production environment, but for development, it really doesn't matter. And you should be able to drop into a shell like this, where you can check to see your connections. And it says you are now connected to database Postgres as user Postgres. I did that by doing /c. So you should be able to have this function in, and then to exit Postgres, all you do is you can just type /q, and that'll actually quit out of there. And so if you're able to do that from the shell, whatever your username or password is that you got to work on your shell is basically what you need to use in your configuration. So don't make the mistake of putting the wrong password up here and then thinking that it's Phoenix. That's the issue. Test it out on your shell and make sure that you are using the right username and password configuration, just so you don't have any issues later on.